Well, it's great to be here in Beattie, and it's great to be here with the Mayor and our good friends who have arrived back in Australia this morning. Well, I'm Kevin, I'm from Queensland, and I'm here to help. His name's Peter, he's from Queensland, and he's here to help as well. We're delighted to have this opportunity to bring to you all our new candidate for the seat of Forde. Peter Beattie, of course, is one of the great sons of Queensland, and he is, whatever your politics, people know who Peter is, know what he stands for, and he is rolled gold Queensland. He has been Premier of the state for more than 9 years. He has a knowledge of this state second to none. From memory, I think you were born in Primal Queensland, up in Atherton. Right, from that part of the world where you grew up there. Of course, he's been around this state a whole lot of times. When it comes to big things like jobs and employment, so central to this national election campaign, Peter's record is strong. If you looked at the period that he was in office as Premier of Queensland, I remember the day when Beattie said he was setting a target to bring unemployment down to 5% in Queensland. A lot of people ridiculed him at the time and thought it was just not doable. When he came to office as Premier, the unemployment rate in Queensland back then was 8.5%. When he left office in 2007, the unemployment rate was 3.8%. Now this is a Premier who knows what it is to make sure that jobs are absolutely central to the task of economic management. And he's done that through strong investments in the state's infrastructure, strong investments in health, and strong investments in education. He has a proud record of investment in our schools and our hospitals. Now, Peter Beattie stands in stark contrast to the bloke who's currently running Queensland, who has had one core agenda, which is simply to slash and burn basic services in health, education, and also with a big impact on jobs as well. Of course, those of you who have already been here for a bit and been around Queensland for a while will know that occasionally Peter and I have had the odd stoush in the past. That's okay, that's life in the Labor Party. You'll all have been handed, I'm sure, sheets from the Liberal Party quoting Peter saying one thing or another about me in the past. Guess what? For me, it's water off a duck's back. It doesn't really matter. What really matters is standing up for the great state of Queensland, standing up for the good people of this region covered by the federal electorate forward. What unites us as a team are our core and continuing values: a strong economy and a fair go for all. That's what Peter's on about, that's what Heather's on about, that's what I'm on about. And that's what all of us who love this part of Australia so well believe in as well. I'd also like today to pay tribute to Des Hardman and the campaign team that he's built up here in the seat of Forde. Des' hard work as the previous candidate and his commitment to working people and the Labor cause is admirable. Standing down to make room for Peter Beattie has been a hard decision for him, and demonstration of his true Labor values. And the reason for that is he wants us, that is the Australian Labor government, to win in Queensland, win in Forde, and win nationally. Also, we're here with the Mayor to announce a $3 million investment towards the construction of a new multifunctional town square right here in Beattie, in partnership with the Logan City Council. The Mayor said this will be a jewel in the crown for Logan City. The Mayor has told me this is one of the largest local authorities in the country, and I know from my own experience, I'm sure Peter when he was Premier, that this is a part of Australia where you see so much growth and so many Australian families coming to live and work and have their being. Cities and their infrastructure are core to the government's agenda. That is why our Deputy Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has been so strong in investing in Australia's economic infrastructure, its urban infrastructure, as well as what we're doing with urban transport infrastructure. This particular investment, I'm advised, will kickstart the revitalisation of Town Centre and further stimulate investment. 147 direct jobs during the work to be done on this particular project, I'm advised. More broadly, the government has a strong record in this area, and I will just simply nominate a couple of areas where we in fact have made big investments in the area covered by Forde, and the Mayor will have seen some of these things on the ground herself. 24 new school libraries in the schools of this district, 28 new multi-purpose facilities, 6 new science centres, nearly 9,000 new computers in the secondary schools, 6 new trades training centres worth $12.8 million. On top of that, we also have our proposal through the Better Schools plan to invest a large amount of additional money into the schools of this region as well. And finally, the Logan Hospital, big and important. And our investments there as an Australian government have been massive. $57 million to create a 24-bed rehabilitation ward, $52 million to expand emergency department services, $44 million to assist in Logan Hospital's expansion of the emergency department itself and a dedicated paediatric treatment bay and waiting area, and $25 million to the Logan Hospital to expand emergency department buildings, including 14 additional paediatric inpatient beds. This is a big investment in the Logan Hospital, and it is a big hospital which services so many of South East Queensland needs. And we have been there in strong partnership with the local community in order to make it work. A couple of final observations about where we stand in the overall federal election campaign. I've noticed that there's continued confusion and division within Mr Abbott's camp about how they're going to fund their $70 billion worth of cuts and where they're going to land across basic services in health and education and in jobs. Well, the latest instalment, I'm advised, is his proposal for his company tax reduction. Our analysis shows he's $5 billion short on the numbers that they've put forward, and he's double counted. And he is therefore hiding, it seems, a further $5 billion worth of cuts. Can I just say this? PFO, the pre-election financial outlook, fiscal outlook document, will be released next Tuesday. 4 days, and we're counting them off, one by one by one by one, until Mr Abbott must come clean with his bottom line for the Australian people. $70 billion worth of cuts. Where are they? Where are they going to be made? Which parts of health? Which parts of education? The clock is now ticking. And finally, on the other part of Mr Abbott's fiscal equation, the goods and services tax. The big news overnight has been, of course, the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party's confirmation that the goods and services tax is on the table for the Liberal Party's review of Australia's taxation system. And if you put together Julie Bishop's comments, you put together Mr Abbott's Treasury spokesman's comments and Mr Abbott's comments himself, it's very clear that the party that brought you the goods and services tax is now in the business of considering the increase in the rate of the goods and services tax and expanding its scope to include other areas such as food. That's where I think the national campaign on the core debates of the economy stand as of today. Can I now, before I introduce Peter to make some remarks, simply make an initial observation that, as you know, this is Peter's first press conference. I'm sure he's shy. He's a media retiring sort of person, and I'm sure I just want you to go easy, given it's his first appearance before the cameras. Over to you, Peter.
Danubia is one of the important suburbs in Forde. Heather and I moved into that suburb this morning. My brother has lived in Danubia for now 22 years. I've been close to my brother for a long period of time. I moved into his house. He's currently away. If I am fortunate enough to be elected as the member for Forde, I will be buying and moving into the electorate immediately. I have form when it comes to living in the electorate. When I first got elected to Parliament, I was in my seat in Brisbane. The redistribution took me out. We sold our house and moved into the electorate. I believe in being part of the electorate. I've demonstrated that earlier today, and I will demonstrate that if I'm fortunate enough to be elected as the member for Forde. This is all about balance. One of the real concerns I have, and one of the reasons I'm running, is I want to see Queensland get a fair go. The Labor Party has 7 seats in the state parliament. We have 8 seats in the federal parliament. That's simply not fair. And everybody knows that if you don't have balance in politics, there's no one to keep the bastards honest. And that's the concern. If Tony Abbott wins this federal election, we'll have wall-to-wall LNP from one end of Queensland to the other. That's just not fair, and it's just not good for Queensland. And that's the reason, one of the key reasons, the only one of the reasons that I decided to run, and the Prime Minister invited me to, and I thank the Prime Minister for that opportunity. I was about doing the right thing by Queensland. And I look forward, if I'm fortunate enough to get elected as a member of the board, working with you, Mayor. I've been aware, and I've been aware of your long involvement in council here, and I'm delighted to see this project going ahead today, which is an invitation to the Labor Party's committee. I'm looking forward to being an energetic voice in Canberra for Forde, and being a pain in the neck when it comes to standing up for Queensland. I've always stood up for Queensland, I always will, and that's the reason why I accepted the Prime Minister's invitation.
Thank you very much, Peter. And just before we take your questions, you have to do so. Mayor, would you like to comment on the project which we're investing?
Thank you, Prime Minister. This is a long time in coming, and we're very, very excited in Beattie and Logan in general for this project. This is something that people of Beattie have been waiting for over 20 years. Logan City Council made a commitment in this year's budget to put $6 million in towards this project over a 3-year period, and we welcome the federal government's commitment of $3 million towards this project. This project will provide the opportunity to create community pride, to use the centre of Beattie to create significant investment into the area and significant jobs. So we welcome this project, and we have many, many more we'd like to talk to the government about, and anybody who's interested in hearing our needs in Logan, because we have great needs in the city that has now been amalgamated, and many challenges from that, and we welcome this as the beginning of many investments coming into Logan. So
Prime Minister, you were very...
So as you start, can I just say thanks, Peter, for accepting my invitation to return to Australia to run for the Australian Labor Party this election, and for Heather for supporting him, and Mayor for hosting us today. Over to you, Peter.